EU policies on GMOs. What about trade and development? What is the problem with trade? The EU is the world's biggest importer of agricultural commodities, many of which are based on GM crops. Europe's main trading partners apply the same basic authorization process for GMOs, but they do so at an ever-increasing pace. And EU's own system is falling behind. Countries ready to export to Europe face the possibility that entire shipments of agricultural commodities that might contain traces of as yet unapproved GM crops in the EU can be rejected. As 80% of the EU's feed comes from imports, such trade disruptions makes it harder and more expensive for European farmers to feed their animals. The EU needs to stick to the official authorization timelines as stipulated in its own laws and adopt trade facilitating policies that take account of the reality of GM, non-GM mixing.
One of the big frustrations for us as traders is that exactly we cannot trade, we cannot supply the demand. Traders buy 1 year in advance, and then it comes to sampling.
It's very important to remove some non-justifiable trade bans and trade barriers, because many developing countries start to produce something and then they have to face so stringent requirements in so many places.
The European major sources of supply, South America and North America, are embracing GMOs at a pace which is faster than the one adopted in Europe for the authorization at import.
It is true, I recognize, there is a problem of time difference, between the authorization in America, North and South, and Europe. How to speed up? I will reply, we don't want to speed up. We want to have a clear process which is transparent and which could be really present to the member states and third countries which export to us in order that everything could act in a transparent manner.
Why do we have trade disruptions?
Low-level presence is about recognizing all the political realities of approvals. At the end of the day, making allowances, practical allowances in terms of tolerances for trade.
What is the solution?
There should be, in our perspective, a certain level of mutual recognition about the science carried out elsewhere and about GMOs which have been authorized in third countries.
What is the political context in Europe?
The difficulties, I repeat, is our political context. It is not the Commission alone we negotiate with Canada or USA. It is the Commission and the 27 member states.
It is possible that despite our best efforts that the European system just becomes too slow and it's just not worth the effort. And that's true now with the non-GE soy for the UK.
What role of Europe in food security? In 2012, the areas planted with GM crops in emerging and developing countries exceeded those planted of industrialized countries. However, reluctance against the technology influences policymakers in a number of developing countries and slows farmers' access to GM crops that could protect yields and help increase farmers' income.
Europe is really in a position of, I guess what you may say, the arrogance of the affluent. They don't have to really worry about whether or not GM crops are going to be accepted here because they are not suffering per se from food insecurity.
It's the example that Europe sets that then has such an influence on other countries.
That European Union are its foundations, are some agencies here, they have been funding anti-tech activism in India. Europe has been using our meager resources to sustain the organic exports from India.
Want to know more? Visit seedfeedfood.eu or write to seedfeedfood@gmail.com.